Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we're looking at 50 Cent and Val Kilmer movies.
50 Cent, you know how I get down, what up, blood?
That's right, Black Awesomeness Month is upon us once again, and for this year I've decided to go with an overarching theme, which is nothing but 50 Cent movies. That's right, movies starring rapper Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, and oh boy, I'm excited to do all of these based on these first three. I've never watched any movie with 50 Cent before this past week, and I'm very, very excited now. I know a couple of his songs. I must confess, I'm not the biggest rap guy. I do not seek it out, but when it comes to my attention, it's really a lot of fun. Didn't realize I had this mashup of him with a Disco Inferno song, and God, I don't know what else it is, but it's really great. It's called Shake That 50 Cent. I've been listening to it for like 3 years. It's like, oh, this is 50 Cent. Great. So 50 Cent made a lot of movies. He's made like over 20. It's pretty impressive. Like, I mean, even by rapper standards, he's in a lot of movies. And a lot of the times as a main character. So this is going to be really, really neat. And the fact that there are at least 4 different themes that I've been able to come up with. There were 2 almost themes where like I had 2 movies, but which was frustrating because one of them was with Jason Statham, which, oh my God. Jason Statham movies. Always ridiculous and wonderful. But this week, we're going to open up with movies that feature 50 Cent and Val Kilmer. The first 3 triple features this month will be 50 Cent paired up with a specific actor, and we're going to go in overall order of prestige of the actor, and unfortunately, we start with Val Kilmer, who... I mean, man, he used to be Val Kilmer. I don't know what's going on with him now. There seems to be a running competition with him and Russell Crowe to see who can, out Marlon Brando the other. And unfortunately, Val Kilmer is leaving Russell Crowe in the dust. Russell, you really got to get back on that. But Val Kilmer, you might recall, about 2 years ago, did a full month of Val Kilmer triple feature, so you can go back and hunt for those, and those will be a good time. This triple feature, I really enjoyed the overall behind-the-scenes story that it told, because the movies sort of go in decreasing Val Kilmer importance and then decreasing 50 Cent importance. Or actually, no, there's more like a peak for 50 Cent importance in these movies. And so we're going to go in chronological order, and our menu is going to include Streets of Blood, Gun, and Blood Out. You watch it and you can see the beginning of the end of Val Kilmer as we knew him. He is still pretty fit, I guess would be the word. I mean, he is not what he has turned into in this movie, but you can see the beginnings of it. But Val overall looks pretty good, especially by today's standards. He is a narcotics detective in post-Katrina New Orleans. It's kind of fun. Like in headcanon, I'd like to believe that after he finished up Bad Lieutenant Protocols of New Orleans, this is where his character ended up. And he takes on a new partner at the beginning of the film, which is 50 Cent. And they are all sort of completely corrupt narcotics officers. It's pretty bad. It's those two, another white guy, and then the actor that played Ricky Verona in the first Crank movie. He's his name escapes me right now, but he's really, really a lot of fun. They're being investigated by DEA officer Michael Bean, who, is probably shady too. And all throughout the movie, they're being interviewed by Sharon Stone, who is in this movie, also affecting a New Orleans accent along with Val Kilmer. It, ranges from, well, it could be that, to I don't know what they're saying. 50 Cent, this is the first time I've ever watched him act in a movie, and he did well. He is the younger police officer, sort of naive in comparison. He is the Ethan Hawke to Val Kilmer's Denzel Washington, and he does well. I love his voice, but for the love of God, I wish he would just open his mouth. It's like he keeps his jaw kind of set in one spot and his lips sort of move around it. I'm not sure if this is a result of the shooting injury that he had, where he got shot 1,000,000 times, including in the face. And if that is the result of that, I feel like a jerk and apologize. It's just something I'm noticing as I'm watching these in rapid succession. This movie is not good at all. I'm gonna level with you. None of these movies are good. In this one, I look forward to seeing them in the other ones, but they're just not. It could have been a good movie. You see the kernels of it with seeing what trying to preserve law and order in a post Katrina New Orleans would be fascinating, but that's not really explored. You can barely hear what people are saying most of the time. The sound is very poor, and when you can hear, there's all these thick accents that are sort of ridiculous. So, while this movie is not overly complicated, it is fairly difficult to follow from start to finish. But, I mean, Val's there, and we like Val, and Sharon Stone is there too. You get the feeling that Sharon Stone's scenes were all filmed in one day, and then she sort of ran off. Or maybe 2 days, because there's like a couple scenes where she's not in her psychiatrist's office, so there might be that. Good start for 50 Cent, sort of bad start for the triple feature in terms of, these are, like, this is the longest movie. I think it clocks in a little over 90 minutes. They're going to get shorter. I don't, like, neither of the other two movies are longer than 90 minutes, which is usually a bad sign. Next up, we have Gun, which was written by 50 Cent, and that's actually going to come back again in the last triple feature for this month, which is going to be As Written by 50 Cent. Co-starring Val Kilmer and Hassan Johnson. That's right, Weebay from The Wire. I was very excited. And also, James Remar and Paul Calderon apparently had nothing to do on Saturday, and so they made this movie, in which 50 Cent is a pretty serious gun runner who goes around with a Smith & Wesson 500. It's a really ridiculous gun. It shoots 500 caliber bullets. They look like bullets the size of shotgun shells, and the thing only holds 5 rounds. It's kind of crazy. Val Kilmer has recently gotten released from prison, as we find out, to infiltrate 50 Cent's organization and bring him to justice for James Remar and Paul Calderon. But his main motivation is revenge, because his wife was killed in a shootout that 50 Cent was involved in at the beginning of the film. So you get a fair amount of like good shades of gray throughout this movie. You get the sense that 50 Cent did a lot of good research for the movie, because there's a lot of tech speak. Think like Ordell Roby in Jackie Brown giving a lot of tech specs for the guns that he's selling. But once again, 50 Cent acquits himself very well. Like, he has a real believability for the roles in these films, which are, him on either side of the law. But he looks like a guy that is involved in either as a police or an offender. But he looks really good as these characters. Val Kilmer has gone full Brando in this. Like, when he comes out of the prison, he's got this long hair, and, for a second I thought it was Mickey Rourke. It's just like, wow, you are not looking great. He's sort of not giving a shit about this movie, but sort of is. Like, you can see sort of a half-hearted effort, but, he's playing a bit of a Cypher type of character. Like, he's a guy that's been in jail for 10 years and is just kind of dead inside and or trying to get back to his daughter. So you don't really get a lot of life out of Val Kilmer, but 50 Cent is pretty smooth and badass throughout the whole thing, just kind of wheeling and dealing and playing different people against each other. And while, again, not a good movie, definitely a lot more parts that I liked in this one, and it was definitely shot a lot better than Streets of Blood, if only because you could understand what everybody was saying and what the motivations were. And randomly John Larroquette's in this movie, and you get to look at a lot of good guns. So I was like, so far, liking Gun the best out of these three. You start to get the sense that Val Kilmer's star is falling while 50 Cent is rising, because he's like writing and starring in his own movie. And, I'm going to blow your minds and let you know that some of his songs are on the soundtrack as well. Val is sort of playing, an important character, but, a character that 80s and 90s Val Kilmer could do in his sleep. So it's just kind of like what's going on. But then everything sort of changes because we have Blood Out, which is a Luke Goss movie. Luke Goss, you might remember from Guillermo del Toro movies, Blade 2 and Hellboy 2, where he plays the main antagonist, and I've sort of loved him ever since that. English actor playing an American cop, and in this one, Val Kilmer and 50 Cent are in it for maybe 5 minutes combined. Luke Goss's character is investigating his brother's death, which I think happens in Baltimore, I think they say. So he is in like some sort of suburb or county of Maryland, I want to say. He goes to get more information on how the death of his brother, who was a drug runner, is going. And who is the lead detective but 50 Cent, playing Detective Hardwick in the Metro G Unit section of the police department. I swear to God, it's one of the best parts of the whole movie, where Luke Goss is being led throughout the police station, and he looks at a sign and is like, "Is this where we're going?" And it says Metro G Unit, and that's where 50 Cent is, because G Unit. You'd think, like in other movies, they would be teaming up to, break the drug ring and or, bring the brother's killer to justice. But no, 50 Cent is either on the take or just intolerant of any other police coming into his jurisdiction. So he basically beats the snot out of Luke Goss and has his partner tase him. Like frat boy type of douchebaggery in movies where you see like cops from different jurisdictions kind of getting their way. And it usually ends up like at the most being like a punch or a shove. 50 Cent like punches the hell out of Luke Goss until he's on the ground, and then his partner starts tasing him and tases him 3 times, and then they throw him in lockup for a day. It's ridiculous. You see 50 Cent one more time when Luke Goss goes vigilante, gets all these tattoos to go undercover and infiltrate the gang, and part of his initiation is he comes back and beats the shit out of 50 Cent, and that is the honest-to-God last you see of 50 Cent through the entire movie, even though 50 Cent is the third billed actor. The second, of course, being Val Kilmer, who is maybe in it for 5 minutes and is apparently the big bad, the guy running all of the gangs behind the scenes. He appears in a phone call wanting to know about Luke Goss and what his background is, because, he doesn't trust anybody, nor should he, because it's apparently a cop. And then he's there for, like, the big climactic tournament fight, because Luke Goss is primarily a martial artist. I mean, he plays a good heavy, and he does a pretty good American accent, but let's be real, we hired him to beat the crap out of people. And so we have, like, a big contest for power. It's Luke Goss fighting for his gang against Val Kilmer's guy, and Val Kilmer is sort of the founder of the feast / MC, telling everybody what's going on and what they're doing, and invoking Mars, son of Juno, god of war. He's invoking Mars, son of Juno, god of war, because he's going to say it about 10 times in 2 minutes and make the crowd chant it along with him. Because in the last 5 minutes of this movie, the people that made it decided to lose their goddamn minds. Which I can sort of understand, because apparently behind the scenes when Val was flubbing what few lines he actually had in this movie, he dealt with it by barking and howling like a dog. Because Val Kilmer has gone full Marlon Brando. Not enough 50 Cent to really give you a critique of him, but once again, playing a police detective and looking like a police detective. Pleasant surprise of these 3 movies is that 50 Cent so far, pretty good actor. I mean, I don't know how much range he's got. Hopefully we'll see more of that as the month goes on, but that so far I think is very promising. So I'll see you guys next week as Black Awesomeness Month, 50 Cent February continues.